so much for tuning in again to our podcast. I have no idea what episode this is, and it doesn't matter. We're just here again, the four of us, your lovely ladies, to talk a little bit about something fun, I think. But yeah, I watched a podcast the other day, actually. It was a bit more like not so much topic oriented, but anyway, it was biblical and stuff. And they started in a really fun way. So we're going to do the same thing. All right?
That we're ready.
Yeah. Which is, I want us each to say one thing that you like about someone at this table.
Oh, you like?
Yeah,
like you said lack.
Like Flo, what do you love about
what
Abby?
Is one thing that each of these persons lack?
Yeah. I was like, actually, I watched this podcast and the person hosting it said, "Tell me one thing you love about me."
Oh.
And I thought that was a little bit aggressive for like my personality. For theirs, it worked, but for mine, it was a bit aggressive.
Yeah.
So like, let's say one thing that we like about each other.
Oh.
So you
have
can
to
pick
go around
one
the table
person.
and say like, oh, you just pick one person.
I think one for the sake of time.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Flo.
Why me?
Because she said Flo before. We just
Okay.
went with it.
Let me think. It should come easily, but I'm in the spot.
Yeah, I scared y'all.
Yeah, we were not briefed on this.
Okay, I'll go with to my right.
Oh.
So we all go to our right.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that works. What I like about Maddie is like, even though she's yuppie.
Okay, it's a compliment.
I love this about her because she's really intentional with that, and she really brings joy through that. I know everyone like mocks you about that. Oh my goodness.
Thanks, Flo. Thank you.
You know where I'm going.
I got you, girl.
Great.
Right, that's the end of our complimenting time. Just kidding.
Follow me for more advice.
No, that's great. That was great.
I'm booking appointments.
Flo with the gift of encouragement.
You should write a postcard because the book might be too long. Just keeping the game.
Abby, you know what I love about you? Something I love about Abby is that what you see is what you get. Like Abby doesn't do filters, not only an unfiltered, but all the time. Everyone's laughing because
it gets me into trouble sometimes.
Yeah, it can be taken wrong, but actually it's something I really love about you. Like I never have to wonder where I stand with you. I know. And that's like so refreshing in this culture, like that things are masked or like I don't know, somebody can have tension with you, but they'll pretend like they don't.
Yeah.
And then you find out later. Like I never have to worry about that with you.
You know,
you're
when
so
there's
honest. You know. She lets you know. No, but you're real, and that's really, really refreshing.
Oh, thanks.
You're
man.
real tense.
That's so
Sorry.
sweet.
Just keeping with the
Julietta. Julie. Etta.
Sorry, yeah.
The other day, guys, we were Julie and I went to this gig of her sister Yaz. Follow Yaz Drums on Instagram,
please.
Quick little plug. And we we were there, and we like get to the venue, and we have our little tickets, whatever. And the lady's like, "What's your name?" And Julie goes, "Julie, Etta." She did it again.
I did it again.
Which
I
is
know.
like a theme of Julie. And then she's like, "Okay, sorry. Like, what's your last name?" She goes, "Galara." And like starts spelling out her name.
It's so much easier than saying Glaza. They're like, sorry. Like, what was it?
It's just like really
It's not like
threw me off.
Jones, you know? Oh, right, yeah. So it's just Gala. It's a lot easier.
Anyways, something I love about
Julietta,
to be honest, is that like you bring a lot of joy. Like you are genuinely probably one of the funniest people I know, and you also like talk about unfiltered. You know, sometimes Julie also comes with that unfiltered, but like 99% of the time, it's something that everyone else was thinking but was too scared to say. Like, and that's actually something that I really love and I really value. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Love you a lot.
Everybody went really deep. And I was like, maybe, I don't know if you're going deep or not.
I like your hair.
Yeah.
I mean, I went with yuppie, so it can get worse.
Yeah, but you turned it into something deeper. So that's... No, I love, Flo, how you have a way of also like making people feel included, and like really like bringing people in, and also connecting like two extremes, you know, and you're really also easygoing, and so like go with the flow, you know. And I know half of
Go with the
flow. Yeah, unintentional. Yeah, but like you're so like, okay, maybe a bit exposing, but like I think you get things wrong a lot of the time. But wait, this is getting better.
all of our compliments had something.
They all had something. Yeah.
We need to get a little bit better.
No, but like it's because you're very much like just very much you, and so you'll be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But like you're really quick to like turn around and like not get caught up in the, oh, like why did I do that or whatever. You just like keep rolling with it, or like have a way of like just saying, okay, it doesn't matter, keep going, you know. And I think that's also really admirable, because I think many times we are so fixated on like what we did wrong, but you're just so quick to being like, okay, moving on, you know. And that really actually is very difficult to do many times, you know. So yeah, so it ended well.
Well done.
Yeah,
good job.
See?
That was fun.
Accurate.
Well, let's start our podcast.
And
I don't know. I just think we also need to grow in speaking life and encouragement and compliment over each other. Like we all get nervous because we don't do it enough. You know what I mean? It's like not something so natural. So I don't know. I liked that in this podcast I listened to and thought, you know what I'm going to do? Copy that. But today we're going to be talking about, which I think actually can go hand in hand in many ways. We're going to be talking about what it looks like and what it's like to be missionaries in a first world country, which is quite interesting because, I don't know. I think when you think about missions in any context, like if somebody says, oh, I'm going to be a missionary, I think of two things, right? The first thing I think of is, like missionaries coming and knocking on my door with their white button-down shirts and like a little tag, you know what I'm talking about? Like specific religions that are like well known for that. And two is like missionaries in Africa or these third world countries that have massive needs, you know? And obviously you come from Chile, you from Argentina, and us from the States and Canada. So we're from the first world already. But I think we have some interesting perspectives of what it looks like to come either from first world to first world as missionaries. And you guys also coming from third world and also growing up here, but to a first world country that most of the world thinks, oh, that country doesn't need anything. Like that country doesn't need help. They don't need missionaries actually. And so I think it'll be actually very interesting that we can talk about what it's like to be missionaries here. So in that, I think, it probably looks quite different than what missions might look like to other people. I think missions can look different actually across every spectrum, not only in first world countries versus third world countries or whatever. But I think it'll be helpful to talk a little bit about missions in London, you know, a city that is so wealthy, so rich, so full of people who have the best clothes, the best lives, the best cars, even the best families. And yet we want to show them something that they might be lacking, no? So yeah, I guess my first question is like, what is your experience, especially coming from your context to a first world country as a missionary? Like, was that accepted by your friends, family, churches, etc., or not really? How was your situations in that experience?
Well, we came here when, like, in the early 2000s, you know, and in South America still, like, missionaries were, like, reaching South America, you know. So, especially from even from my grandparents and up to my parents as well, like, the whole thought of going to, like, the place where the missionaries came from, it was, like, also just, it didn't fit, you know. So we really, like, especially from my dad's side of the family, who are not Christians really, to them it was like, you're not going to be missionaries, you know, like you're going to live in England, you know, like everything comes from England, you know, whatever. So it was definitely something that a lot of people judged us for. It was, you know, something also that even I also ended up judging myself for. In the first few years, especially the first year that we arrived, everybody was so kind, so generous, and so like, wow, you know, like you left everything. The way that I remember, especially when we moved, everybody saw like we left everything, so we had nothing in a sense. You know, we didn't have our home or the things that we had up until that point. So people were really generous, and they would give out of, you know, and the best, and sometimes. And so I remember even like myself being like, well, this isn't really like missionary life either. Like I could get used to this, you know. So I think, especially as an adult, I really had to train myself that like because in the West, I think materialism is so strong that like it really does go like somehow like really affect like your Christian life, and you don't really realize it, or maybe there's a lack of awareness, you know, to where actually like materialism is a huge god. I think it is in a sense as well in South America or in a third world country, because you always want to have the things that you can't have because it's too expensive for you to be able to have. But I think the issue in South America is more idolatry, you know, the idolization of these things. Whereas in the West, I think it's more the like, I guess the like, this isn't good enough, so I need to get the next best thing, you know, like, and the obsessiveness, especially when it comes to technology and stuff, or like things of high value, you know, like always having the latest phones and stuff. So for me, I think it's always been really like important to kind of be aware of that materialism is at like that I'm aware of it, and that I don't like let that giant sleep, you know, in a sense, and like kind of like, because actually it can become a huge part of me. So I need to also be aware of where I came from, but at the same time, like not be afraid of who I, you know, of also what God has given me, because I'm so blessed and I've been so blessed, you know. Oh, whose alarm? There's an alarm going off outside. Anyways,
Unfortunate.
sorry, hopefully you can't hear it, but yeah. So yeah, we can.
Yeah.
It's pretty loud. Yeah, hopefully they're okay. But yeah. So that's what I was.
Nice.
I think for me, sorry, the alarm turned off.
Perfect timing.
Oh yeah,
I went back
on. You probably can't hear it.
They can't hear it.
No, they definitely can't. I think for me, I like came to DTS like me not knowing in a way that I was going to stay here long term. God knew for sure, and I think also I knew in some ways.
I also knew.
Yeah, I think everyone knew, but it was like the classic, like, no, I don't want to stay. Get me out of here. You know, classic.
It's actually really, that was really
very
accurate
to how I felt at the time. Yeah,
old Abby.
Honestly. But yeah, and I also chose England like quite randomly to do my DTS, like me choosing it randomly. I think God really brought me here like purposefully. But for me, it was just kind of like, oh, I want to go somewhere that speaks English. England, you know, that was literally what went through my head. So I like applied, whatever. So I think like I didn't, like if we're talking about churches or like people's perspective on like me doing missions in a first world country, coming from a first world country, like I don't feel like I got much like of the questions about that, or like the like, you're still there, you know, until a bit later, because I like I said, my plan wasn't to stay for very long. So that's also what I was communicating to family, friends, whatever. So I think more that I got a bit later, like once it had been like a couple years and people are like, so you're still there, you know, you're still doing that. Like even I went home in February and I had family being like, oh, so you're still in London. And I'm like, yeah, like I've been building my life there for the past 7 years, you know, not just like, I don't know, it's not just a visit for me, you know, or like, I don't know, it's like life is here. Like in my personal life, but also like missions, like my long-term, you know, is here. So I think like I got that a bit more later rather than like, I never really felt that right away because I also wasn't necessarily sure if I was going to be here, you know? So, but I definitely feel like I got some of that, like, since I come from Canada, that's very privileged as well. Coming to another place that's privileged in some perspective. I think there's been a lot of like, really? Like, that's where you're going to be? Like, do you go anywhere else? Do you do it? You know what I mean? Like, I get those kind of questions a lot, which I think people don't like mean like in a harsh way or in a judgmental way sometimes. Maybe sometimes, yes. But like, I think sometimes people are just like genuinely like you said, their perspective of missions is going to Africa, you know?
Yeah.
And to be honest, that was mine too. Like I also had that perspective. Like I didn't really see DTS. This might sound stupid, but I didn't really see DTS as missions. Like even though half of it is literally like a missions trip, I just like, I don't know. I was not aware. So yeah, I think even I had that perspective for a long time. Like why here, God? You know, like why did you bring me here for missions? Like what do they need here? You know? So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I was very similar. Like I always laugh because we work for youth with a mission, and yet I didn't know it was a missionary organization. Like I had no clue. Like I came to DTS for like very specific personal reasons, not for missions at all. I love to serve, so missions in some ways came out from that, but I had no clue. Like I just I think it was like the first month that I realized when I was like, oh shoot, I'm a missionary. Like what? Even though I remember my fundraising blog was like Maddie with a mission. So it's like I knew, but I didn't.
But I get it.
Yeah, to be honest, with my family and I didn't come from a church necessarily. I wasn't super connected in my church when I came, but my family was supportive, similar to yours, like supportive for the initial purpose, and then it was sort of like, okay, but why are you still there? Right. And I think that's valid for family to ask, and also for the sake of integrity. Like, I think there are a lot of people who move saying that they're doing one thing and actually they're doing another thing, you know? So like, oh, I'm a missionary in London, but like maybe they just see the nice posts on Instagram and the excitement and whatever. I remember my grandma at one point said, like, when are you going to be done with this like summer camp kind of thing? And I was like, it makes sense to say that though, because also what I post is like, here's us at the park and here's us playing games, you know? So yeah, but I think like, I don't know, I've actually had a lot of really, really good response to missions in England. I don't think I've ever really had anyone question me of like, why there? I think they say why there in terms of like, why'd you choose to move there? Not like, but London doesn't need from that position, you know, which is refreshing.
Yeah.
What about you, Sophie?
Yeah, no, I was trying to think, like, also thinking, I was like, whoa. But yeah, for the past 5 years, when I came here, I always knew I was going to do missions and like get ready to like go to the next step. For me, it was always Asia. Like it wasn't always like Africa. Everyone was like, oh, Africa. For me, it was always Asia or like countries that no one really cared. And I don't know if I have a heart for Asia, but I always was ready to like go, you know? So when God was saying like England and everything open up for England, I was like, what am I doing in London? It was the last place I wanted to come. Not because I hated it or because it was bad. It just like all my friends love Europe so much, and for me it was like, no, I want to go to the other extreme. Like I want to be different. So for me, like coming to England and London specifically was like, oh yeah, like a fun adventure at the beginning, you know, like my church saying like, oh, you're going to London, so fun. But for me it was like, but the more I committed and the more they got like also speak life into like the calling and like the place, especially when I had to like fundraise or like telling people what I was doing. In my perspective, like going from where I come from, like such a like a poor country, in so many ways it's not poor, but like it's so different the way that we live, you know. When you're at least in Chile or South America, when you look at the first world countries, like, oh, they have everything, the big houses, the money, the car, they have good families, they have like a good time for school, for example. We always complain about like school times because they were so long, and like we don't have our parents because both of them are working for us to like go to school. So like it was just like a circle. It's like you're like working to live, living to work, living to work. So it was just that perspective, and it's like there's no way out. That's the way that you live. And so for me, coming out of that, for everyone was really shocking, because everyone's like, you're such a like a kid, like a family kid, you know. You're not the one that leaves your family. It's like so drastic and like so strong, because you don't leave your family. Like maybe you go out for a couple months, but you never leave your family. Like you will see there's not really like Chileans outside of the country, because it's like not normal. So for me to like being in London and like having this calling and having to like express to people that like the need is everywhere. And like my mom was like, but you can do it also here. There's also people that need it here. I'm like, yeah, but like the way that I'm here, other people will go there, and that's how missions work, you know. Like there's this connection and there's this web, and as God has been faithful to provide for me, not just financially, but how he has provided like a family for me here, he will provide a family for the people that also is behind, that they don't know God, you know, my own family in some ways. So like having to do missions in the first world is like, I have a church that supports me in the States, and they're always like, why London? Like, what is special in there? And I'm like, well, the same need that you have in the States is the same need in here. The same need that is like around the corner of my house it's here, you know. But I feel here like it's so hidden that you can't really see the need because everything's like, we have money, so we don't need anything, you know. Back home it's like, we need the money. So like all you seek is that. But actually the comfort and the family that I grew up with, I'm so thankful for that, you know. Because maybe here, like I babysit for some families and they like so many things, you know. And I'm like, it's so sad to see that, because I had that, and growing up I was like, I took it for granted. But now that I'm here, I'm like, wow, I was so privileged in that sense, you know. And being here is like, not many people have that, you know. It's like that loneliness that we're gonna talk about. But I think it's like, it also depends of each one of us, like how God we respond to that call that God gave us in this place. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think that brings a really interesting question. Like when you said, something your mom said was like, why can't you meet the need here, you know? And I think that's a really interesting question of like, what is a missionary? Like, is a missionary somebody who meets needs? Like, what is a missionary? What do you guys think? Like, how would you describe a missionary without sounding like Lauren Cunningham, you know? Like, that's why God created the missionary. Go watch that video if you haven't watched it. It's really beautiful.
Grandpa Lauren.
But yeah, what is a missionary then? Because if it's a person who fulfills needs, I don't know, does it just stop there? Or how would you describe it?
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to be people who meet a need for sure. But I think we're also supposed to be like people who like quilt, if that makes sense. Building a quilt, you know, creating connections, creating bridges, you know, like the aspect of missions is not just going, but also bringing, and it's also connecting other people, you know, like something that a lot of like YWAM bases will do, especially locally. Like I remember growing up in YWAM and having like culture nights where you would like dress up in traditional clothing. That's what I would see, like everybody dressing in this traditional clothing that I would think is like clothes that children would wear in like countries so far away that I will never ever see, you know. But actually they brought it so close that it made it so real, and it was like, you know, wow, like that actually is like happening today, you know, and me being so aware of that, to then not so many years after that going to those countries and, you know, actually experiencing that. But if it wasn't for people bringing that to me in my home at like my place where I was at, then I wouldn't have been exposed to that, you know. So I think missionaries are, yes, there to meet a need. I think that's also Christians in general. But I think what sets, or the difference of missionaries, is that we're not just only called to go to, but we're also called to kind of like bring back and create these connections. That's why that picture of the quilt, like to, you know, build bridges, build gaps, bridge the gap, to really like bring that connection, you know, like, and I think that's where London, or like being in Europe, you know, these are places also that many people come to because they are so popular. So in many ways as well, like you have the nations at your doorstep. More and more, I am very much aware that where we live, especially, lacks English culture. So now I'm even like more aware of the fact that I actually want to be more intentional with the English culture that I bring even to our community, you know, because actually it's something that's like slowly fading just because there is so much variety as well. So in the same way that we bring other cultures here, I think it's also important, that we go there, but that we also connect other people to that, you know. So I think for me that's what it means to be missional. It's to not be stuck with one thing, but actually like have a mind and a vision and a heart that is everywhere. So
I think for me, I have a bit of a weird answer. Maybe you guys won't agree.
Classic Abby.
Yeah, classic. But I think like missionaries, kind of like similar to what you're saying, are like reachers, if that makes sense. Like people who reach out and people who seek and are also curious. I think everyone is like that in some way. But this is where my answer gets a little bit weird. Because someone asked me this recently, actually, like, why England, or like, I don't know, something about what I do, blah, blah, blah. No, they were asking me about Canada and about like, oh, like, do you miss it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I mean, it's not, I miss my family, of course, like all the time, every day, you know? But there's also always been a part of me that never really felt that Canadian. Like I never felt like that connected to my culture. Or
she says with maple red nail polish on.
Of course, there's things that don't.
The land I call my own.
That's enough.
Canada.
I don't know this song.
It's from Princess Diaries.
It's not our national anthem.
It's like some
Maddie and Julie like to sing Genovia, but instead of Genovia, Canadia.
Very culturally accurate.
Yes. Something like that. Going back to my point.
That is your point, that you're not that Canadian.
Yeah,
It's the point that this is now your national anthem.
What I was trying to say was that, like, I never really, of course I'm like proud to be Canadian. I'm not trying to like diss on Canada or anything like that. Like I am really proud, and I think like there's many things that we do as a country and have done that like are amazing. Like I'm proud to be Canadian. There's some things that I don't agree with, but anyway, if we're not getting into that, but anyway. But what I'm trying to say is that like I never really like felt that connected to my country. Like I know that there's a lot of people that have real like patrioticness in their blood, you know, and like people are always like, oh, but and they see like America, if I can use it as an example, are very like loud and proud, you know, like we love America,
free, home of the brave, babe.
Yeah, July 4th, biggest holiday ever, you know, like
all right, y'all.
Yeah,
talking to the wrong American, but yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit for you, but
Argentinians.
Yes, Argentinians as well. Very, very proud people. Love their
We're really
We're
not
just
letting
really
you
sing.
We're not letting her talk.
Anyway.
Okay, sorry.
But I never really felt like that.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of Canadians that feel like that. I think sometimes we get kind of overshadowed by our southern neighbor because they're so patriotic. People are like, oh, but Canadians aren't really that patriotic. I'm like, trust me, they are. They love, people love Canada. They do. And that's great. But I was never really one of those people. Like I never ever felt that connected with my country, or like that, like this love for my country, or like, I don't know, I was like, oh, this ground is my place, you know. Like I remember one time I was talking to someone, they were from the US, and she told me that every time she lands in like when she's flying home, she cries every time the plane lands.
Goodness.
Which is beautiful for her.
Yeah.
Don't happen to me. I'm just saying, you know. But like, I don't know. What I'm trying to say, all of this wrapping up, is that like I think also there's a part of missionaries that like, at least for me, that was from day one. You know, like that wasn't something that came later. I think for sure, like I realized the call later, and there was like I didn't see that in certain years, you know, or feel that in certain years, but that was something that was always kind of a part of me, if that makes sense. So I think like in some ways, like, I don't know, it's in my blood, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It sounds weird. That's why I was like, I don't know if it makes sense. But yeah.
I think in some ways, I forgot the question actually.
Like, what is a missionary? What does being a missionary mean?
I think in some ways, I don't
I
know.
wanted to make sure that
Just
was
to double
it.
check. It's valid. She starts talking about something else.
I do that a lot. Too far away. But yeah, I think like we always talk about this. What is to be a missionary, and it's raising a lot.
Son to
Run to. Yeah, there's a lot of movement right now where I want to like go and like go to the nations and go and like be a missionary and reach out to people. But I think like they always told me in church that missionary is like all you do. You know, being a missionary is to be a disciple of Jesus. Be a missionary is talking to your neighbor, loving your neighbor, going, also loving your family, and it doesn't like always means about like preaching specifically like, oh, you have to follow Jesus because he's your savior. It's like just in basic things in the way that you live, how you show the gospel like through your life. I think we're all called to be a missionary, and we all are a missionary in some ways. And where we work and where we study, even in the same church, we need to be like missionaries in there because the church, we get lost in the church, you know, and like traditions and things. So I think it's very important that missionary is not just that person that we support monthly and we send money. Oh, like that's also a missionary. Like I told so many people that supports me, I'm like, you're being a missionary by doing like supporting me as well, because maybe I'm here physically, but you also like in your area, in your family, you're also like doing so much, you know. And I think it's very important, like, that we understand the missionary is not just a person that goes out of their comfort zone and, like, go and do missions. Or, like, for example, like me that I've been here for 5 years, I only been, like, to maybe 2 or 3 different, like, nations, you know? But I'm investing in London because I know that, like, London have so many nations itself that they can spread to, like, more nations. And my neighbor is, like, I don't know, from Italy, and they can just go back and, like, share that, you know? So I feel like that's very important to know that, like, missionaries, again, is not what you do, but, like, also, not who you are, but what, I actually don't know what I want to say. But being a missionary is, like, and that's your being, also your identity, as we have been called in the Bible and by Jesus.
Amen.
With that, I finish.
I mean, I think it, like, to go off of what you're saying, like, there is an aspect of like the calling of a missionary that is you know, I guess like a dedication of your life, but actually there is a calling of a Christian to be missional in how we approach life. And I think that's applicable to all, which is what you're saying, you know, like in everywhere, through everything, to be missional. So
that's a good word.
Yeah, it's true. I don't think it's fair to separate like, oh, these Christians are missionaries and these ones are not, you know. It's true, we can all be missional. But the verse that really comes to mind is the same verse we use for summer missions, you know, like we are anointed to proclaim the good news, to see freedom and healing and blah, blah, blah. It's Isaiah 61 for those of you that want to check it out. Or even like the verses that say like how beautiful are the feet of those who carry peace or carry the gospel or something like that. And so I think like it's true that being a missionary is about being obedient and doing whatever God calls you to do, whether that is in your hometown working at the corner shop or like in another country or whatever. I think being missional is the goal, and it's like it's the calling. But I also think there's specific attributes of being a missionary, and that's like a boldness to speak truth. That yes, Christians have, but in case you're a missionary who is afraid of the gospel, not because you're in a closed country and like you'll be persecuted for that, right? Like, but I mean like, in case we're not sharing like who is God, in case we're not reflecting who is God, like, I don't know that we can be a missionary by living in a shack in a forest and not speaking to anyone. You can be an intercessor, you can be a prayer warrior, but I don't know that that's missional, you know what I mean? Or a missionary. So I do think there's like specific things that mark missionaries, you know, people who can speak truth, people who are seeking transformation, people who are pushing like the status quo and the boundaries of things to be like, let's go for more, you know what I mean? And so, I don't think that that's separated from people who are at home. I just think that those are working in their hometowns or whatever, or in normal jobs, whatever. But I just think those things are really important about being missional, or being a missionary, really.
Especially because I think it's something that like makes it approachable, because I think many, especially in the church, it's like, I think you've got the two angles, like, I could never be a missionary because like that's not for me, or like I don't have the guts or whatever, or like that, like it's actually a place of so much honor that like only a select few can go.
Yeah.
And it's also like a lifelong thing.
Yeah.
Like we're waving goodbye forever and they're never coming back. I think that's also because that's how missionaries used to be back in the day as well.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, also
a lot.
why the stigma of you're a missionary in London, so you're never coming back from London. Okay. You know, that's why people are like so shocked, because it's this thought of like you're giving up your life for this mission, this goal of reaching the unreached.
Yeah.
Which, that's true. But if that's true, then that should be applicable in London the same way, because there are a lot of people that are unreached.
Yeah.
So the medium might change, the place might change, but the heart continues to be the same. So I think it's also important for us to continue to have that heart and to apply it accordingly in every area.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that leads us to like a really, it's a good segue to the next question, which is like, why London then? Why England? Like if we're talking about needs, we're talking about whatever, like what is it that England needs? In what way are people unreached? Because 90% of the people in this country have grown up in a Church of England school. So they've heard something about Jesus, you know? Yeah. It's so rare that I meet someone who's like, Jesus, I've never heard that name before. Right. You know, everyone has a clue, has some clue, some idea of like who is God. So it's not like going to the islands of Papua New Guinea where like they've never heard the gospel in any form, you know? Yeah. So what is it like, what does England need? You know, what are the needs that are in this first world country and maybe other first world countries as well, but particularly this one? Like, what is it that you see that also God has called you to sow into? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. There's a lot of things. But something that I wanted to mention that you actually said was about how, like, London, there's so many different cultures and so many different people in one place. And that's something that I love about London. And I think is actually so incredible about this place and why God brings us here, because you can find someone from everywhere here. Like, you can go, like, there are... every single culture is like represented. Thank you. And I think that that's something that's really amazing. And I think also a big part about why God calls people here, you know, is that it's like such a center for it to reach so many people in such a small space. Like that's like, and this sounds like a bit cheesy, but sometimes I think about it and I'm like, that sounds like heaven, you know, like so many cultures in one place all together. You hear so many different languages and you're sitting beside so many people who look very different from you, you know, like I think that that's something that I love about this place and I love about London is that there's so many cultures here, you know, and I think that's also really kingdom culture in a way. Like that's what the kingdom is, you know? So I don't know. I think that there's so many things that England needs and London needs. I think a huge thing that I see all the time, and that is also really real here in the place that we live, is addiction. That's a huge one. And that's something that you're going to find anywhere, but especially in cities, and to be honest, in a lot of first world countries as well. Like at home too, addiction is very real, and it's something that plagues a lot of people. And like that's something that you need freedom from physically and spiritually. You know, that's not just a like, oh, now I don't smoke anymore, I don't drink anymore, so I'm set free. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot that comes along with that. And yeah, so I think addiction is a huge one that we see all the time here. And I think something that comes along with that is also, you mentioned it, like this loneliness, you know, and I think that's what a lot of people try to fill the loneliness or like fill the pain of whatever with drugs, alcohol, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think that those are two huge things that I see daily, like every day.
Wow, it's true. I think, I think people here, and not only in England, but in first world countries, I think people are drowning in convenience, like really drowning in it. It's so easy to fulfill whatever need you have temporarily. And it's so easy to have a convenient life, but one that is not fulfilling, you know? And so I see a lot of people who, like we said in the beginning, have everything. And I don't want to say they have nothing, because that's not fair to them, but like are sometimes missing the things that can really fulfill them in a deep way. Like the woman at the well, you know, she's like, I have water, I have this, that, but Jesus like, but like with my water, you'll never thirst again, you know? And I think there's a lot of people in first world countries that are like, I got everything, I'm good. But everything is really convenient, and everything is like, I don't know, they can fulfill their own needs, you know? And there's been times that I've been in other countries, like I was in the Middle East, or I was in South Africa, where I couldn't just fill my needs. I couldn't run to the corner shop. I didn't have data on my phone, which means I don't have connection to people. Specifically in the Middle East, I remember like being so attacked, like spiritually in the night. One night I just was so attacked, and I had no capacity to like reach out to my friends for help, you know? And I was in such a need of God. And that's something that actually makes me quite sad in this country, is that it takes so much to get us to a point of needing God, because I can distract myself with whatever thing. And I think that is huge here, that there are like significant needs, a need for peace, a need for healing, a need for whatever. And yet we mask it because like the need never actually comes to the surface in this kind of a world, you know, which is sometimes scarier, you know? Because it takes longer to dig under, and maybe like people live their whole lives without ever digging deep enough to actually receive the thing that they need the most. I think that's why I'm really passionate about this country and this city especially, is like, I just want people to like receive, you know? So yeah, I just got really passionate, so I'm going to chill out for a second. Go ahead, Will. Go ahead. I'm going to cry soon.
Break of 5 seconds. No, I think something going on with what you were saying. I was thinking that I think there's something in London that I can like feel, and like also like, I don't know what's the word, but there's a deep, but like I can't find the word, but it's a deep sense of like they want relationships, you know, and having Jesus and having God is because as you were saying, like in the church no.
Yeah, you're really far.
Sorry, oh God, like I was laying down before. As you were saying, they have heard about Jesus before, but they never like know that they needed to have a relationship, you know, and that's the whole point of like knowing God is to have a relationship. And I think people here in London or England, maybe as we were saying, first world countries, they because everything is a convenience, they never actually went deep. They never like because maybe going deep is a place of fear, because there's many things that we don't know, and there's many things that we need to dig in, and maybe we're not ready for that. And I think facing reality, people were not ready for it because it's painful and it hurts, you know. But that's the beauty of knowing God, and I think I think there's a hunger for like having deep relationships, and I think that's why there's addiction, there's loneliness, because we don't know how to be deep or how to like have relationships that are also healthy, you know, and that's knowing Jesus as well. Like I think the church, I can see it like the hunger of like religiosity, because they want to follow a pattern, and I'm not saying just here, I'm saying all around the world. There's a pattern of following because we want to be good and we want to be fulfilled with the things, but actually that deep belonging of like being known and being loved, it's something that it's superficial, because everything is accessible. Like I can just go to a coffee shop, I get my coffee, you know, I can have my routine, but actually that feeling love and belong to is like through a relationship with Jesus. And I think that's something that they lack a lot here. And sometimes I can feel it and I'm like, Jesus. So it was like very similar to what you guys were saying.
Wow.
I think for me, it's twofolded. In one hand, it's like the UK especially, at least for most of us in our context of countries, is the one responsible and the one that we have to thank for us having the gospel. You know, like, you know, you think of all of these amazing people who came before us, and it's thanks to them that we have the gospel, you know. And so revival was so like present back then in this nation, in this land, and all across Europe as well. And it's thanks to that it's gone to our side of the continent, you know. So I feel like there's a huge responsibility on our part as well to kind of give back to sow back also on those, you know, almost like your parents or your grandparents, you know, this aspect of honor, you know, of giving back, especially because England I can speak specifically for England, is looking for an awakening, is looking for revival, and is seeking to go back to that, especially the Christian generation is seeking for that, because that has been put to sleep, that has been put to the rubbish, and it has been rejected by many. So as somebody who has been a product of receiving the gospel from here, that is now pretty much dead in many ways, I see it as a responsibility to come back and bring it back to life. Not that it depends on me, but that I take the challenge, you know, to say, I want to be a part of that revival, because it affected me in the first place. You okay? Always.
Not
sorry.
And the second thing is that it's not the most important place, but we can't deny the fact that the West is who many look up to, you know, the big brother in a sense, you know, and London is a city that actually drives many cities for good or for bad, you know, and so there is a lot that goes on here that maybe, you know, I'm not involved in a sphere of society that is really crucial or like, you know, monumental, that's going to make a massive change, but I have that access, you know, to think, you know, today we were at the cafe, and there was local councilmen having breakfast here, and to think that that's our reach, you know, sure, they maybe do something locally, but that, you know, somehow it can connect us in such a way where the things that can happen here actually influence and make another big change somewhere else. So actually, you know, maybe I'm not called to be in the center of things, but actually I understand also that the things that are happening here are also affecting and bringing change for good or for bad elsewhere, you know?
For sure. A lot of influence.
Exactly. There's so much influence. So at the same time, being in a place like this as a missionary, it's also a huge responsibility, because what we're doing is also shaping or trying to shape culture with a Christian message, you know, that perhaps otherwise wouldn't have that sort of influence. So I see the need to be in this place. I mean, God called me here. That's why I'm here. If God calls me to China, I'll go. If God calls me to the Tonga, I'll go. You know, whatever. But God called me here, and I realized that this is crucial because of this, you know, and that's my responsibility as well. Because sure, need is everywhere. And the great thing is that God's given us a heart to meet the need wherever we go. But we feel the need here because we've lived here, and because we're also embedded in the city. Like, we love the city as our own as well, which is amazing. But I think what also makes it so I think our mission is that the fact that, one, I think it's in our blood because it's where we came from, and two, it's also where it's going to go. You know, I hope and I pray that revival will come with another big wave again, where like it's going to bring a tsunami across the world again, you know, to an even greater scale from Europe, you know. And I think it's doing it like from, you know, last year we had a team of Argentinians who came to the UK to help, you know, to come and bring the gospel. And years ago, that I didn't think I would have seen something like that, especially from the local church. Yes, from a missions organization, but from local church, I don't think I would have seen that, because the stigma was that the first world people go to the, you know, but the fact that they came, like, things are really shifting. We see the need, and we are wanting to step up to the call and to the plate to say, here I am, you know. So I think it's not the place, but I think this place is really beautiful and very important, you know, at least for me. So
I think, as you said, there's need everywhere, and we don't deny that in saying, oh, I'm coming to England. It's not because I deny needs in other places, you know. Needs are everywhere, but also the Western world and the first world countries also have needs, and we're being obedient to God to be here. And also I want to thank those of you who are in your own cities, in your own countries, being faithful to where God has placed you, because you're also being missional. So well done. And those of you that have like a little like stirring in your spirit, like, shoo, I need to be a bit more missional, go do it. You can do it. Like, you have the capacity. Julie said earlier, like, oh, maybe you feel like you don't have the guts. I pray and I declare a spirit of boldness over you to maybe you don't need to run around the streets screaming Jesus, but to do whatever God is calling you to do and to be faithful to that.
Yeah.
Because the gospel is not irrelevant. That's what England likes to think, is like, oh, I had Church of England, I grew up about Jesus, but now it's not relevant. No, it's relevant. Jesus is so relevant. He's not irrelevant. And so we fight for that for this country, but also all the other countries that will be influenced by what's happening here and beyond. So this has been super long. So we're gonna close it off.
Wrap her up.
Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, girls, for sharing also your own stories. I think that's also really refreshing. And thank you guys for listening, whatever you're doing on your journey, whatever. And I just want to give a shout out, because we've had multiple people tell us that this has been like such a blessing for them, like to just be in conversation and enjoy this space, which is the heart of this podcast, is to bring connection, like Flo was even saying, like, this is part of our mission. We want to bring connection with you. We want to bless you and love you, and for you to know that you have friends here. And we've had people literally say that to us. And so you know who you are, Polly, and others, but we especially give a shout out to our bestie Polly. And we want to say thank you guys for listening, and you're always welcome here. So thanks for being here. We love you, we bless you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.